Week 3 is in the books. What a week of college football, my friends. Look, we talked about it in some of my preview and prediction videos. I stated the fact that I feel like this was a turning point week. Like, we're going to find out a lot about teams. It's going to be a true test for some teams that maybe their first test, maybe it's already their second or third test if you're Southern Florida. Props to them for even playing the schedule like they do. But with all of that being said, another fun week, another entertaining week. I feel like we've gotten a lot more answers. So let's just start with what was probably the most anticipated game of the week and really what served out to be one of the biggest games of the week, and that's Georgia and Tennessee. Georgia defeats Tennessee 44-41 on the road. Kirby Smart and the Dogs start 1-0 in conference play. Tennessee loses a heartbreaker, and I lose a heartbreaker as well. I picked Tennessee to win this game. I was so confident. With College game day, it felt eerily similar to that Alabama, a couple years back game when game day was there, and it was a chance to snap the streak, and they finally get it done on a walk-off field goal. Incredible moment. The goalpost ends up in the river, and here we go. We end up where it seems eerily similar, right? And we get all the way down to the end, a chance to win it on a walk-off field goal, and what happens is Tennessee misses it. But prior to that, Tennessee had every chance in the world to win this football game. So props to Georgia for sticking in it. It's something with the Dogs lately where it feels like this is just how they start games. They start down where it's like they are lifeless, no energy. They come out and completely flat, and teams just throw their best punch. But every single time, we saw this in the Alabama game when Georgia went down early to them last year, and yet they come back. Now, they lost that game, but they still came back and took the lead at some point. So Kirby's team, for whatever reason it may be, slow starts seem to be the theme now in these big-time games, but yet they find a way to bounce back. And they did exactly that in this game. I thought Gunnar Stockton and Mike Bobo's offense found some consistency in the run game. Particularly, they had one drive that was, I want to say, 15, either 14 or 15 plays, and 13 or 14 of those plays were runs. They had one pass attempt on an entire touchdown drive in the second half. I want to say it was late third quarter. Look, they just leaned on that run game. Nate Frazier had a good day. Gunnar Stockton utilized his legs here and there. That offensive line had some push. But Tennessee's defense didn't play bad either. This was one of those games where it sucks that someone had to lose it. Speaking of Tennessee offensively, my biggest concern after that initial fireworks start, right? Chris Brazzell, incredible game. Joey Aguilar, all things considered, great game. One of those interceptions was not his fault. One of his guys slipped. It was just an unfortunate play. The defense still ends up holding Georgia to 3 there in the second half. Tennessee gets the ball back. What do? I kept saying to myself, look, Tennessee is looking for a big-time play. And in the first half, that's what they were living off of, was those huge explosive plays. Outside of that opening drive, which was methodical, then it turned into big-time plays. Again, very similar to the Alabama game with Jalen Hyatt when he had, 5 touchdowns, I think, in that game, and how many of them were huge, big-time plays. So I thought, hey, can Tennessee here in this fourth quarter, can they sustain a drive if Georgia takes away the big plays? If they cannot hit a big play, how do they get momentum back and sustain a drive? And they didn't even need to. Tennessee kept and continued to find those big plays. Both of these teams have work to do defensively, but both of them made plays when plays needed to be made. So, again, this was just truly competitive football on the field, but even more than that, this was a heavyweight bout in the press boxes and on the sidelines. 2 incredible coaching staffs, 2 really good teams. I mean, look, this loss for me does absolutely nothing but give me more confidence in Tennessee. And I loved the way Georgia played as well. I think both of them had flaws, but it's going to be interesting to see what these 2 teams look like moving forward. Again, I'm very impressed with Tennessee. I had them winning this game. They had every chance to do it and were unable to do so. So congratulations to the Dogs. Fun game. Excited to see what Georgia does for the rest of the year. Let's move over to South Florida. Let's get over to the ACC. Miami looked dominant. We did pick this one. We said exactly what would happen. Miami covered the initial spread that we had touched on was minus 17.5. The Canes had no problem with that at all. Look, and all my respect in the world goes out to Alex Golish, and I love USF. And again, like I stated earlier in the intro of this video, is all the credit in the world to them for playing this schedule. You play Boise State, ranked. You play Florida on the road, ranked. You play Miami on the road, ranked. And you come out of that 2-1 is pretty darn awesome. And, outside of the fact that, yes, Miami single-handedly just blew the doors off of them, it's still not demoralizing, okay? That is such a tough 3-game stretch with no bye week, no break, to go on the road against the Gators and then go on the road against Miami, especially when Miami was ready for you. They have enough film for you. They weren't going to slip. Miami just wasn't going to slip. Look, Shannon Dawson's offense looks almost stellar at this rate. Carson Beck looks extremely comfortable. He actually looks, in my opinion, at least just in the small sample size thus far, more comfortable in this Shannon Dawson offensive scheme than he did in Mike Bobo's. So to me, that's scary. That says a lot. As someone who's been a little up and down on Carson Beck, hasn't been the biggest proponent of his success, or at least the biggest supporter of his NFL draft stock. I mean, it's looking good. And if anything, this is turning out to be an extremely smart decision for him to find his way over to Miami, who plays Florida next week, funny enough. So truthfully, not a ton to say. Malachi Toney is a beast. Defensively, that defensive line looked solid. USF just struggled to find any kind of consistency. And honestly, USF struggled offensively really most of the year. Against Boise State, that first quarter was sluggish. Against the Gators offensively, they really didn't have any consistency in that game outside of the tempo and just wearing that Florida defense down. And then the Gators' mistakes and turnovers, it wasn't really an offensive win. It was a team win, but offensively, that hasn't been their strong suit. So it doesn't surprise me. And this win doesn't shock me either. So Miami really cleans up what at the beginning of the year they probably looked at as a tune-up game, and they handled it like one. So props to Miami, man. They look legit. We're going to see game days heading to Miami. I don't know if they're going to Miami Gardens or Coral Gables, wherever they take the set to. I'm sure it's going to be a great atmosphere and a little bit of in-state hate going on down there next weekend. So let's get to the next game. Texas A&M and Notre Dame. What a battle. We get this one wrong yet again by the skin of our teeth. The only two games we missed were Georgia-Tennessee. Tennessee had every chance in the world to win it. And Notre Dame, we picked over A&M. Notre Dame had every chance to win it. But that's the beauty of college football. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So A&M wins a classic. They get their first ranked road win since, 2014, I want to say, against Auburn was the last time they were able to pull that off. So pretty remarkable to think about. It's been that big of a drought. What a fashion to do it in. I mean, this game was, I thought this was going to be a low-scoring game. If I remember correctly, I think in my preview and prediction video, I know I picked Notre Dame, but I think I stated that I thought it was going to be a slow-scoring, defensive just slugfest, like a very quiet game with maybe one or two big plays in there. I didn't think either of these quarterbacks were going to be very comfortable in this game, and I was completely so far off from correct. Fireworks, high-scoring game. Jeremiah Love had 23 carries. He finally gets the correct amount of involvement that I wanted to see from Mike Denbrock. On the defensive side, Notre Dame looked a little bit better. However, Craver and Texas A&M just craved them up completely in the secondary. Marcel Reed, a couple mistakes here and there, but all things considered, played an incredible game, left it all out on the field. The entertainment value of this game was nearly like a 9.5 out of 10. This may have very well, if you go back and watch the highlights, this A&M and Notre Dame game was right up there with Tennessee, Georgia. Incredible football game. The drama at the end, was remarkable. But here's the thing I want to talk about is Mike Elko's team is starting to get used to these really close games. Like, they've been in how many of them now? And if they continue to keep winning these, be careful for what that does. I think about Georgia Tech, who we'll get to here in just a second. The more and more you play in these games, that mindset and that mental comfortability of being in these moments, that's what happens. So all the credit to Texas A&M. I thought that offensive line played a great game. The receiving core played a great game. I thought Colin Klein called a great game. Like, look, offensively, they look great. A lot of work to do on that defensive front. I want to see more consistency. I would like to see more blitz packages, a couple more stunts. It just felt like defensively there wasn't a lot of schematic things to try to slow Jeremiah Love down and to slow Price, but that's neither here nor there. We'll see what A&M does, but it only gets tougher from here with the SEC schedule they have. So a darn good win for them that's going to shoot their stock way up in terms of at least just maybe a backdoor playoff if they're not able to win the SEC. Notre Dame, on the other hand, first 0-2 start in, I don't know the last time Notre Dame started 0-2. Now, granted, it's brutal that you essentially are playing two arguably top 10, top 15 teams back-to-back to start your season off. So I will give Notre Dame credit for that, for the amount of people that come at them for not being in a conference and playing a weak schedule. To play two top 15 teams to start your season, one of which being on the road, is not an easy thing to do. So props to Notre Dame. Both of these games were close. They were in both of them. That's the thing about this sport, and we'll talk about that with Clemson, is you're always a snap or two away from an entirely different season. So does this end the playoff chances? It's going to be tough, but it's not impossible. Notre Dame's schedule from here on out, they could absolutely go on and win 10 straight. We're going to see what Marcus Freeman's team can do there. So Georgia Tech and Clemson, we got this win right. Ended up being closer than I thought. When Georgia Tech went up early, they punched him in the mouth 13-0. Haynes King and his legs were effective. Jamal Haynes had some effectiveness. Malik Rutherford and Eric Rivers, that offense was clicking here and there. Clemson's offense, yet again, anemic, no consistency. Cade Klubnik fumbles early. They just couldn't really get out of the gates. And for the third straight week now, Clemson's offense just comes out in mud. And it starts in the run game. Adam Randall, Dabo Swinney emphasized, hey, I want the ball in his hands more. And yet, even when they do that, it still feels like Clemson cannot effectively and consistently run the football. I don't understand what it is. They utilized a lot of the quarterback draw with Cade Klubnik. They were able to spread Georgia Tech out, give themselves the middle of the field on that quarterback draw. But even then, it never felt like, even after they got 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5, that they could get the ball moving down the field. Now, by the time they finally clawed back into this game, the offense did find some consistency. And I think that they were able to lean on Georgia Tech a little bit. Garrett Riley found a little bit of space and a little bit of comfort in what he was calling. He was able to stay ahead of the chains. They were able to get a little bit of separation. Bryant Wesco had a really good game, over 100 yards receiving. But yet again, Clemson just, the clutch factor is slowly starting to slip away from the Tigers. It feels like every close game Clemson was in from, say, 2014, 15, outside of a couple, from 2014, 15, all the way until at least 2019, 2020, it just felt like every close game, the Tigers were 95% sure to find a way to win. And nowadays, from 2021 to now, it just feels like the opposite. It feels like as soon as Clemson gets themselves in a one-possession game against a good team, they're going to find a way to lose. And that's what they did. Now, Georgia Tech, on the other hand, this is what they live in. This is what they live in. I've said it time and time and time again. I picked Georgia Tech as my sleeper playoff team at the beginning of the season in one of my videos. I stated, look, this team is so used to being in games like this. And win or lose, Brent Key is the kind of coach that is just even-keeled all the way through. Haynes King, even-keeled. Jamal Haynes, even-keeled. This team is just head down, work, work, work. I thought the defense played an extremely physical game. They made plays when they needed to. I liked the way that secondary played and how physical they were against Wesco and some of that receiving core. They did not let Clemson effectively run the ball. Although Clemson was able to get some push in the second half, then Georgia Tech's offense did what they needed to do. The 55-yard field goal, like the turbo speed, just run-out fire drill attempt was insane. When Tech used that last timeout on third down with second down with 19 some odd seconds left, I'm like, what are we doing? Why would you use that timeout? I mean, either just get on the ball and run one more play or run it down and just... I was mind blown. But yet, I think the beauty in this, and I can see where Dabo didn't call timeout on this, was... One, you don't give your kicker a chance to overthink this thing. Like, it's go, go, go. As soon as the play's done and the whistle blows, it's like, get on the field, line up, snap the ball, kick it, no thought behind it. There's no fear, there's no nerves, there's no nothing. And Dabo maybe thought, hey, being this rushed and having to get out there and essentially grip and rip it, maybe he misses this. Maybe he shanks it, it's a bad snap. There's so much going on all at once. And it's the college level. So there could be a complete miscue, false start, illegal formation, something along those lines. That does not happen. Tech practiced this. And again, that just shows preparation and coaching. And I love Brent Key. And I'm not going to beat too much on this one, but all the credit in the world to Georgia Tech. Just an amazing win for Brent Key's team. Do me a favor, go look at the rest of their schedule because it is extremely favorable, and there's a realistic chance where the Yellow Jackets could in this season at least go into good old-fashioned hate against the Dogs 11-0. And it's a damn shame that game's not on a campus this year because that would be incredible in Atlanta. But still, a ton of football until we get to that point. So let's stick to now Georgia Tech with a big win. As for the Tigers, 1-2 start. Last time they did that was in 2014, and Dabo bounced back. Look, I think Clemson bounced back. I really do. I think they will bounce back. But what needs to happen is they need to find an identity in the run game. If Adam Randall's going to be your guy, then let him be your guy. If Gideon Davidson's going to be your guy, let him be your guy. Give Cade Klubnik the keys to the Corvette. It just feels like Garrett Riley is so timid, so laid back in the play calling. I don't know if it's because Antonio Williams is out, but there's zero deep threat on this offense. It feels like that offensive line can't communicate well. Cade Klubnik does not have time. He's always scrambling, and Clemson just needs to find an identity, and I think they will. It's going to be a process. It'll be interesting to see. So, South Carolina and Vanderbilt. The Commodores absolutely thump South Carolina. 31-7. They go on the road at Williams-Brice, get a huge win for Clark Lee. And, like, dude, are we serious with Vanderbilt right now? Clark Lee is turning this program into something we have not seen in how long. First 1-0 start in SEC conference play since 2011. They're 2-0 for the fourth straight season. And the momentum is just, it's contagious. Diego Pavia, the confidence and the swagger that he plays with, whether you call it cocky or not, Vanderbilt did a lot of chirping this week, and they went out and got it done. They take the very first drive all the way down the field, take a 7-0 lead. South Carolina then responds. They go all the way down the field as well. Lenore Sellers looks good. The offense is alive and well. The stadium is in it. They tie the game 7-7. I'm thinking, okay, South Carolina's going to settle in. I think they'll win this one by maybe 10 or 14. I think, look, Vanderbilt's a chippy team. They're going to stay in it. I was completely wrong. Completely wrong. Now, I did not predict this game prior to it happening, but in the moment, I just comfortably thought South Carolina would get this win. And I, again, like I said, not even close to correct. Vanderbilt was better. They were better coached. They were more physical, and they just wanted it more. Now, losing Lenora Sellers hurts badly. That never helps whatsoever. But the turnovers were just killer. And Vanderbilt just played complimentary football all the way around. Offense, defense, special teams. All three units played up to the par that they needed to play. And they just fly around the field, man. It is a gritty, tough football team that just keeps that underdog mentality on their shoulder, and they don't let that get too high. And as for South Carolina, to have the talent they have offensively, something has to give. It just feels like there's no diversity to this offense whatsoever. It is extremely one-dimensional, whether it's either between the tackles or it has some kind of like a slant implementation to it, trying to force the ball to Nick Harbor when there's so much talent spread out. I would love to see South Carolina get the box less flooded, have less bodies in the box, allow for Lenore Sellers, if healthy, of course, to have some room between the tackles within the hashes to actually do something and utilize that talent. But yet, again, just no consistency. It feels like there's no pattern or scheme to this offense at all. It's just kind of like pick a play on the sheet and let's just hope it works with the talent we have. And that's just not going to cut it in the SEC and clearly not against Vanderbilt. So, yet again, props to Clark Lee. His unit looked just infinitely better than South Carolina did. Even prior to the Lenore Sellers injury, they just looked faster and more physical, like flat out. So, man, South Carolina, they're going to have to hopefully use this as a wake-up call. Not the toughest schedule in the SEC, but not by any stretch an easy schedule. I still think this is a really talented Gamecocks team. This doesn't end the season by any stretch. Hopefully Lenore Sellers can get healthy, and I think if they can open that offense up, find ways to use Sellers' arm and legs just even a little bit more, add some diversity, find some new wrinkles in there, I think they'll be fine. As for Vanderbilt, man, it's just keep churning. Keep churning. Keep playing that physical, gritty fashion of football that you play, and things are going to work out for you. So excited to see what Clark Lee and that team does. Alabama and Wisconsin. What a roll of the tide we get here in this game. Saturday, we had a noon kickoff there in Bryant-Denny. Alabama wins this game, and truthfully, to not very many surprise. Look, I'm just going to be blunt. This Luke Fickell experiment in Wisconsin has just been brutal. Offensively, Danny O'Neal just looked completely lost. Any big play, it felt like it was one step forward, 9 steps backwards, turnovers, penalties. They were just outmatched. Props to Alabama. It's a big win for Kalen DeBoer's team. He's now beat Wisconsin back-to-back years, both very convincingly. So, you know what? It's always a reward when you can beat the teams you should beat. And they handily beat Wisconsin back-to-back years. This year they get them at home, and of course they get the job done. Jeremy Bernard has a big game. Ryan Williams has a big game. Ty Simpson looked comfortable. He looked confident. The offense was catered around that. I love the play action utilization in this football game. The run game was there. Look, Alabama all around, they were just the better team, and they played like it. And that's the standard that Bama needs to play at, is play like you are the better, more physical, faster, better coached football team. Whether you are or aren't, you got to play with that fire and that passion. And we finally saw that this Saturday at Bryant-Denny. So, again, props to Alabama. It's a good tune-up win for them against a team that they should have been able to do that to. I'm excited to see what they can do and hopefully build off this momentum, one win at a time. Finally, you get your first win against a Power 4 opponent this year, so now let's continue to keep building that. We'll see what the Tide can end up doing as the season continues. As for Wisconsin, I run out of things to say. I'm starting to really lose faith in the Luke Fickell project. It hasn't ever really gotten its legs. Offensively, just no identity. Almost less of an identity as their counterpart in the Big Ten over in Iowa. So, look, I don't know. Wisconsin, I mean, they came into the game 2-0, but even in both their 2 wins, they weren't the most impressive offensive performances in those. It's a defensive unit that flies around and plays hard, well coached on the defensive side of the ball, but just absolutely zero help when you're out there for 40 minutes a game. It gets extremely tiring. So, I try not to be too negative all the time, but it's a shame, man. Wisconsin is a proud program that usually always has consistent success. And so far under the Luke Fickell tenure, it hasn't been. And anytime they've played a ranked team or a big opponent, it's just been really outside of maybe Penn State last year, their face just gets buried in the turf, and it's disheartening to see. But again, credit to Alabama. Kalen DeBoer's team comes out. They win this game 38-14 in an impressive fashion. So curious to see what they do for the rest of the year. LSU and Florida. LSU wins 20-10 over the mistake-ridden, cursed Florida Gators. Look, LSU gets a good win. Any win in the SEC, at home, it's got to happen. And that's what LSU did. They come out, they get the job done. They beat the Gators 20-10 with a little bit of help from the other team, really. A lot of help from DJ Lagway. DJ Lagway, 5 interceptions. Look, I stated in the preview and prediction video, and it couldn't have been any more apparent in this football game that DJ Lagway did not look comfortable in this system. He's had happy feet. He's looked rushed. He's just looked all out of sorts. Mentally, physically, in the pocket, his throwing motion, everything. He just has not looked the same, nor has he looked confident or comfortable. And to come into Death Valley under the lights and this atmosphere with your back well, not even against the wall, damn near through the wall after losing to USF, is just such a tall task. And Billy did him no favors. The schemes and the sets, I just don't understand it. Any route that Florida tries to run is usually at least 4 to 6 seconds in development. It's like a 5-step drop before anybody even branches off their route. And if it's not that, it's either Hayden Hansen or Tony Livingston, just a quick 5-yard out, some kind of a short flood or a strong flood concept that usually any kind of a zone coverage is going to be right there to make the play on. Look, it's so tough. Again, Jaden Baugh completely underutilized. You would think, hey, maybe we eliminate some of this if maybe Tramel Jones comes in and we just give Lagway a mental breather. Nothing whatsoever. The Gators, yet again, had every opportunity to be in this football game, and yet mistakes killed them. Now, look, this one is not entirely on Billy Napier, so let me just set that record straight. I'm not here to say that this one is unequivocally Napier's fault, but again, even Napier admitted it in his press conferences that he has got to do a better job of putting his guys in a position to win the game, or better yet, as a coach, understanding when one of your guys is not made or built for this current position within the game. Look, and I'm not calling for Lagway to be benched for the rest of the year, but maybe, hey, coach, let's get a new spark. Let's just put Tramel in, or whoever the backup is. I believe is Tramel Jones. Let's put someone else in and just give them a chance. Let's just see what happens, and DJ can still be our guy. He can come back next week. Maybe let's just give him a series off, and then we'll go from there. Next week's practice, we'll worry about the relationships and the friendship, and yet we continue to throw him out there when the camera pans to him, and it's like he's holding back tears. And look, my heart breaks for him, okay? I don't ever want to see a guy go out there and do that, especially not the high school or college level. Like, these are still young men. But Billy just did him no favors. Like, it almost encouraged the humiliation. So that's really it for the Gate. I mean, this defense has given up 2 touchdowns in the first 3 games of the football season, and they sit at 1-2. So just brutal luck for that Gators defense that has done everything they can. It's not ideal. Now, for LSU, look, like I said, the X factor was Blake Baker's defense, and they forced 5 turnovers. So again, props to Blake Baker. Some of the pressures and looks that he showed Lagway just had him in a blender. So we're going to do a separate video on those 5 interceptions and really what LSU's defense was doing. And to be quite honest, if I had to articulate it, it really wasn't anything crazy. It really wasn't. They showed pressure and they sent pressure. They didn't disguise a whole lot there in the second half, and they felt like they didn't need to. Florida couldn't even handle what was being given to them, even if LSU showed their cards, showed the blitz, showed the coverage, showed how many single high, double high safety, cover 1, cover 2, whatever Blake Baker wanted to do, his defense executed. And that's a big thing in coaching, is execution. And that's exactly what his defense did. Defensive line looked good. Florida wasn't really able to run the ball. Lagway didn't have a ton of time. But then again, it's underutilization from Florida, and LSU just taking advantage and reaping the benefits that Florida allowed them to. So as for LSU's offense, Brian Kelly got very heated about this, and understandably so to a small extent. I understand a win is a win. And at the end of the day, you get paid to win football games. It doesn't matter how you do them. And when people look back, I'm not looking at a box score. If LSU were to go 13-0 this year, I'm not looking back at the box score and saying, well, they had starting field position here, and the offense only had 190 some, which they didn't. They had more than that. But you get what I'm saying, right? I'm not going back and looking at the box score. If they go 13-0, they go 13-0. But when things start to go downhill, it looks as though currently that offense is going to be the first to blame. I did not like the game that Joe Sloan called at all. It really didn't have any kind of utilization until maybe the second half, when he finally got Aaron Anderson on some shallow crossing routes. He created either an empty backfield, created a little bit of traffic underneath, and slipped Aaron Anderson through a little bit of pick and rub routes, some mesh concepts here and there, is when they finally started to move the ball. Same thing with Bauer Sharp. But other than that, it just felt like there was no design at all. Caden Durham in that run game was just stuffed. The offensive line played a terrible game, all things considered. I did not like the way they played. Nussmeier with the interception, just not a decision you're used to seeing him make, especially not this late into his college experience. So it was a sloppy offensive performance, quite honestly. Very sloppy. So I understand the question, and if you're not sure what I'm referring to or why I'm stating this, is Brian Kelly got this question at his post-game press conference. Like, hey, what's the deal with, great win, but what's the deal with the offense? And he was very defensive in that. Why are you asking me this question? We won the football game. So, again, hey, I get it. BK won. LSU won. It's something to be proud of. It's progress. But clearly, if he doesn't state it, we all know that offense needs to be touched up. And Joe Sloan's going to have to start to figure it out. There's way too much talent on that offense for it to be that sluggish and just really inconsistent. So, curious to see what LSU does offensively. But, hey, the Tigers are undefeated. They're 3-0. It's a great start to the year, and that defense is playing with so much confidence, and this is only going to build it. So excited to see what the Tigers have in store for the rest of the season, and especially as they start to dive into SEC play and what is a wide open conference this year. So lastly, we have Ole Miss and Arkansas. Ole Miss gets a 41-35 win against the Hogs. It's a very good win, even without last but not least, my mic just cut out there, so we had to kind of run this back. Little technical difficulties, but Ole Miss beats Arkansas 41-35. They get the job done at home. Trinidad Chambliss, man, what a game. 21 for 29, 3 touchdowns. Just a stellar performance from a D2 guy from Ferris State. That was awesome to watch. Like, that was so exciting. Awesome to see. It was a typical Lane Kiffin win, right? Defensively, they just can't seem to really get a stop. That second quarter was just brutal to watch for them. Third quarter, that defense played a lot better. They bowed their chest. They only gave up 7 points in the second half. So props to Ole Miss for that. I like the adjustments. That's a big thing. I love the way they adjusted the secondary. They adjusted that defensive front and really that front seven. So props to Ole Miss on another SEC win. Like, keep that in mind. Without Austin Simmons, Ole Miss is off to a 3-0 start, 2-0 in the SEC. They beat Kentucky last week on the road. They beat Arkansas at home. Hey, it's a wide open year. Now, I understand that Kentucky and Arkansas aren't the pinnacle or the cream of the crop in the SEC, but still, to have to play those two teams 2 of the first 3 games of the season and come out with both wins is extremely impressive for the Rebels. So excited to see maybe how much further ahead they are of some other teams, just saying. A lot of teams are just getting their first test. Ole Miss has really been tested, and they have prevailed in both of those. So Arkansas, it's such a tough loss. I loved the energy they played with. I thought there for a second they were going to come on the road and get a huge win for Pittman. Nothing to really hang your head short on. Again, defensively, just a letdown with a backup quarterback. I didn't like the defensive plan at all. It almost felt overly aggressive to me, just from a viewer's point of view. I just dropped my pencil there. It felt very over-aggressive. I think Arkansas thought they were going to come really just set the pace in this game and just determine the flow of it. But when you're playing against a Lane Kiffin coached offense. It doesn't matter who's at quarterback, and it doesn't matter how badly you want to set the tone or set the pace. He's gonna slap you around, and that's what ended up happening. But from an offensive perspective, I liked how Arkansas looked. The second half was tough to watch. The wheels just fell off. I thought the play calling got a little bit too comfortable. I think they just thought that they could start to kind of lean a little bit, and that just was not the case. So all of that being said, a great win for Ole Miss, and it's off to the races. We'll see how Arkansas can bounce back as well with a very tough schedule ahead of them. So